You've already noticed that the more you try to win over a woman, the more she pulls away? The more messages you send, the colder she gets? The more available you make yourself, the less she values you? This isn't a coincidence. There's a cruel logic behind this that most men will never understand. And until you grasp this dynamic, you'll keep failing without even knowing why. The truth is, you've been taught wrong your entire life. They told you that you needed to be kind, considerate, always available. They told you that persistence was romantic. They told you that showing interest was honesty. But nobody told you that these attitudes completely destroy the attraction a woman feels for you. And the worst part is that you believe the problem is that you're not handsome enough, don't have enough money, aren't lucky enough. But it's none of that. What really separates men who attract from men who beg has nothing to do with physical appearance or bank account. It has to do with mental posture. It has to do with behavioral energy. It has to do with invisible principles that some men follow naturally, often without even realizing they're doing it. Meanwhile, the majority does exactly the opposite and destroys themselves gradually. Relationship after relationship, frustration after frustration. If you want to stop being just another invisible man and become someone who naturally sparks attraction, you need to understand the strategic laws I'm going to show you right now. And before we continue, if you want to completely master these strategies and never go through humiliating situations with women again, drop your like right now, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because this content can completely change the way you relate to others. The first law you need to understand is brutal and goes against everything you've been taught. Stop offering yourself. It sounds simple, but most men can't do this. They believe they need to do more, give more, be more available. They think the more effort they demonstrate, the more the woman will value them. But reality works completely differently. When you do too much for a woman who hasn't yet shown real interest in you, when you're always available, always responding immediately, always willing to drop everything for her, you transmit a clear message. Scarcity. You're saying without words that she's the only option you have. That your life is empty enough for her to occupy all the space. And this kills any possibility of attraction. Think with me. There are two types of men. The first is the one who chases. He sends good morning every single day. He constantly starts conversations. He never disappears. He's always there, always available, always trying to please. And you know what happens to this guy? He becomes predictable. He becomes common. He becomes disposable. Because there's no challenge whatsoever in winning him over. He's already won over. Now think about the second type of man. The one who has a full life. Who has purpose. Who has occupations. Who has other priorities besides her. This guy isn't always available because he's genuinely busy living. He doesn't respond immediately because he was doing something important. He doesn't start conversation every day because he has other things happening in his life. And you know what this guy transmits? Value. He transmits that he's someone other people want. That he has options. That he has an interesting life. And this sparks curiosity. This sparks attraction. The strategic principle here is simple but powerful. The man who doesn't try to prove anything is the most respected. When you stop trying to convince a woman of your value, you automatically become more valuable. Because true value doesn't need to be announced. It's perceived. And the most effective way to demonstrate value is through genuine scarcity, not fake scarcity. I'm not talking about playing stupid games of counting minutes to respond to messages. I'm talking about genuinely having a life so filled with purpose, occupations and achievements that you're naturally not always available. The practical action here is clear. Match the emotional investment. If she takes 3 hours to respond, you don't need to respond in 3 minutes. If she doesn't start conversation, you don't need to always be initiating it. If she doesn't show real interest, you don't need to keep inventing ways to get attention. Stop living by your phone waiting for her notification. Have a real life happening outside the screen. Build something meaningful that demands your attention and energy. Create projects that excite you more than checking your messages every 30 seconds. This isn't a game or a strategy to manipulate her. This is you genuinely becoming a man with substance, with direction, with a life worth living. And when you have that, scarcity becomes natural, not manufactured. The second law will make you completely rethink the way you present yourself to women. Attraction doesn't come from total transparency. Mystery is power. And here's one of the biggest mistakes men constantly make: telling everything about themselves right at the beginning. They think creating quick intimacy is the path to winning her over. So on the first date, they're already talking about their difficult childhood, about traumas, about plans for the future, about fears, about everything. They think the more she knows, the closer she feels. But it works exactly the opposite way. When you give everything at once, when you completely open your book before she shows real interest in reading, you eliminate one of the most powerful elements of attraction: curiosity. The female mind works through discovery. She needs to feel there are layers, that there's depth, that there are interesting things to discover gradually. The enchantment isn't in already knowing everything about you. The enchantment is in wanting to know more. It's in the feeling that each conversation reveals a bit more, that each encounter shows a new facet. When you give yourself completely right at the start, you remove this element of discovery. And without discovery, there's no journey. Without a journey, there's no emotional investment from her. Think about any series you've watched and loved. What kept you watching? Was it knowing everything from the first episode? No, it was precisely not knowing. It was curiosity. It was wanting to discover what comes next. The same principle applies to attraction. The strategic principle here is never give your book before she wants to read the first chapter. Let her show interest. Let her ask questions. Let her invest in the discovery. And the practical action is simple but requires discipline. Share less, ask more. Instead of you talking about yourself, ask questions about her. Let her talk. Let her open up. And when you share something about yourself, be brief. Leave gaps. Leave loose ends. Leave her wanting to know more. You don't need to be mysterious in an artificial or theatrical way. Just don't vomit your entire life in the first conversation. Let things reveal themselves naturally, over time, as she shows genuine interest. Think about the most interesting people you've ever met. They weren't the ones who told you their entire biography in the first hour. They were the ones who revealed themselves gradually, making you want to know more with each interaction. Be that person. Now let's move to the third law, and this one is fundamental. Mastered emotion equals guaranteed respect. The most destructive failure that common men make is losing emotional control easily. They get irritated over anything. They panic when she takes time to respond. They get anxious when she goes out with her friends. They become completely dependent on her mood. If she's well, they're well. If she's distant, they enter desperation. And you know what this demonstrates? Emotional fragility. And emotional fragility kills attraction in a brutal and instant way. Because female attraction is deeply connected to the perception of strength. Not physical strength, but mental and emotional strength. The capacity to remain firm regardless of external circumstances. When you become emotionally destabilized because she took time to respond, you're showing that your emotional state depends on her. That you don't have control over yourself. That you're unstable. And instability generates instinctive repulsion. Because no woman wants to be in a relationship with someone she needs to manage emotionally. She wants a man who remains firm, who has mental clarity, who doesn't collapse over any oscillation in her behavior. The strategic principle here is powerful. The man who doesn't destabilize is the man who leads. Leadership isn't about commanding or controlling. It's about having the emotional stability that allows the other person to trust you. And trust is the foundation of any genuine and lasting attraction. The practical action here requires daily training. Pause before responding. When something irritates you, don't react immediately. Breathe, process, think. Then respond with clarity, not with uncontrolled emotion. Never react on impulse. Never send that message loaded with demands and desperation. Never explode from jealousy or insecurity. Maintain your emotional independence. Your internal state cannot depend on her behavior. You need to be well with yourself regardless of whether she's responding quickly or slowly, regardless of whether she's affectionate or distant. This emotional solidity is magnetic. She feels that you're different, that you're not just another emotional desperado, and this will put you in a completely different category from most men she's ever met. Emotional mastery is the difference between the boy who reacts and the man who responds. Boys react impulsively to every stimulus like puppets on strings. Men pause, evaluate, and respond with intention and clarity. Which one are you choosing to be? And since we're talking about emotional control and posture, this is the perfect moment for you to strengthen your commitment to this transformation. If this content is making sense, if you're realizing how many mistakes you've been making without knowing, drop your like right now and share this video with that friend who urgently needs to hear these truths. Let's continue because there's still a lot of valuable content ahead. The fourth law is about something most men are terrified to do: establish clear boundaries. There's a dangerous illusion that dominates the nice guy's mind. He believes that tolerating everything will make the woman like him. That accepting disrespect, that swallowing mean comments, that allowing questionable behaviors will show how understanding and flexible he is. He thinks he's being mature, that he's being the nice guy, but reality is brutally different. Too much tolerance doesn't generate gratitude. It generates disrespect, and disrespect completely kills any possibility of attraction. Because attraction requires respect. Without respect, there's no genuine attraction. There can be convenience, there can be material interest, there can be many things, but true attraction, no. The brutal truth about human dynamics is simple: without boundaries, there's no respect. When you don't establish clear frontiers about what you accept and what you don't accept, you're telling the other person that she can do whatever she wants with you, that you don't have enough self-worth to defend. And when you don't defend yourself, when you tolerate anything, you become predictable in a negative way. You become the guy she can treat badly and who will still be there. The guy she can disrespect and who won't do anything. And this guy doesn't spark any attraction. He sparks pity, perhaps, or contempt, but never attraction. The strategic principle here is fundamental for your transformation. What you tolerate defines who you become. If you tolerate disrespect, you become someone disrespectable. If you tolerate being treated as a second option, you become a second option. The practical action requires courage but is essential. Don't accept subtle disrespect. That little joke that diminishes you in front of others, that mean comment disguised as a joke. That behavior that makes you uncomfortable but that you swallow to avoid conflict. Stop swallowing. Speak with firmness, not with aggression. There's a huge difference between the two. Firmness is you clearly communicating your boundary with tranquility and seriousness. Aggression is you exploding, yelling, attacking. Firmness generates respect. Aggression generates fear or contempt, and have real consequences for wrong behaviors. If she crossed a boundary and you warned her and she crossed it again, there needs to be a consequence. It could be you distancing yourself. It could be you ending the conversation. It could be you ending the relationship. But there needs to be a consequence. Because a boundary without consequence isn't a boundary. It's an empty threat. And empty threats completely destroy your credibility. A man with boundaries is a man who knows his worth. He's not trying to control others, he's protecting his own peace and dignity. He understands that some behaviors are non-negotiable, and he's willing to walk away rather than compromise his self-respect. This isn't being difficult or unreasonable. This is being a man who values himself enough to demand the same from others. Now we arrive at the fifth and final law, and this one is possibly the most powerful of all. Sovereignty is the most fatally attractive element that exists. You know what really attracts women naturally and genuinely? It's not money. It's not a car. It's not appearance, although these things can help. What really attracts is a man with purpose. A busy man. A man who has a life bigger than the relationship. A man who's building something. Who's pursuing goals. Who has a clear mission. This type of man is magnetic because he transmits something rare: completeness. He doesn't need a woman to feel whole. He wants a woman, but doesn't desperately need one. And this difference between wanting and needing is everything. The fatal error that constantly destroys men is dropping everything for a woman. He meets someone who sparks interest in him and immediately abandons the gym, relaxes at work, leaves friends aside, abandons his personal projects. He thinks this will impress her, that it will show how important she is. But exactly the opposite happens. When you abandon your mission for a woman, you become smaller. You become dependent. You become boring. Because you don't have anything else happening besides her? And a woman doesn't want to be a man's entire universe. She wants to be part of the universe of a man who's already complete. She wants to be the company of someone who's going somewhere interesting, not be the only destination of someone who's standing still. The strategic principle here is transformative. The woman falls in love with the man who remains focused on something bigger than her. She falls in love with his ambition, with his focus, with his determination, with his life. Not because she's the center, but precisely because she's not. Because this shows he has value independent of her, that other people recognize this value, that he's building something significant, and she wants to be part of that. She wants to be beside this man, not because he needs her, but because she wants to be near someone who's constantly evolving. The practical action is non-negotiable. Maintain your routines. The gym isn't optional. Work can't be relaxed. Your personal projects continue being priority. Never give up your mission for female attention. Put your purpose as rule number one of your life. And when you do this, something interesting happens. You naturally become less available. You naturally become more mysterious because you're always busy doing things. You naturally become more emotionally stable because your happiness doesn't depend on her. You establish boundaries naturally because you don't have time to accept disrespect. All the previous laws start working automatically when you put your mission first. Because a man with purpose doesn't chase. He selects. A man with purpose doesn't beg for attention. He offers valuable company. A man with purpose doesn't tolerate disrespect. He simply walks away because he has more important things to do. And this is irresistibly attractive. Think about the most magnetic men you know or have observed. They're not the ones obsessing over women. They're the ones obsessed with their craft, their mission, their purpose. And women orbit around them naturally, drawn to the gravitational pull of a man who's going somewhere. Now let's tie this all together. You need to understand that attraction isn't performance. It's not about pretending to be something you're not. It's not about using manipulation techniques. It's not about psychological games. True attraction is about posture. It's about self-mastery. It's about purpose. It's about you genuinely becoming a man of value, not just appearing as one. Because you can fool someone for a while with techniques and masks, but eventually the truth appears. And if beneath the mask there isn't a man genuinely working on himself, everything crumbles. Let's quickly recap the 5 laws that separate men who attract from men who beg. First law, stop chasing. Stop offering yourself. Have a life so filled that you're naturally not always available. Second law, be mysterious. Don't give everything about yourself at once. Let her invest in the discovery. Third law, control your emotions. Don't destabilize easily. Remain firm regardless of her behavior. Fourth law, define clear boundaries. Don't tolerate disrespect. Have real consequences for behaviors that cross your frontiers. Fifth law, be sovereign. Keep your purpose as maximum priority. Never abandon your mission for female attention. When you internalize these 5 laws, when you genuinely live according to these principles, something magical happens. You stop asking for love and become magnetic. People start perceiving something different in you. You transmit an energy that most men simply don't have. You become someone women want to win over, not someone who needs to win them over. And this inversion changes everything. Because the man who respects himself never needs to chase. He simply lives his life with purpose, with clarity, with well-defined boundaries. And the right people are naturally attracted to that. He doesn't beg to be chosen. He chooses. And there's enormous power in that position. But here's what most men don't understand until it's too late. These laws aren't separate techniques you apply one at a time. They're interconnected principles that work together to transform who you are at your core. When you stop chasing, you create space for mystery. When you maintain mystery, you need emotional control to not fill every silence with words. When you have emotional control, establishing boundaries becomes natural. And when you have boundaries, you protect your sovereign mission. It's a system, not a collection of tricks. And the system only works when you commit to the complete transformation, not just cherry-picking the parts that seem easiest. The uncomfortable truth is that most men will watch this video, nod along, agree with everything, and then do absolutely nothing different tomorrow. They'll go right back to sending desperate good morning texts, right back to being available 24/7, right back to accepting disrespect because they're terrified of being alone, right back to abandoning their goals the moment a woman shows interest. And then they'll wonder why nothing ever changes, why they keep attracting the same type of woman, why they keep ending up in the same painful situations. The answer is simple. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. You're not here to be entertained. You're here because you're tired of failing, tired of being invisible, tired of being the nice guy who finishes last, tired of watching other men succeed with women while you struggle. And if you're truly tired, if you're genuinely ready to change, then you need to make a decision right now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, the decision to stop being the man you've been and start becoming the man these laws describe. But you need to understand one important thing. None of this works if you don't start now. Knowledge without action is an illusion of progress. You can watch 1,000 videos, read 1,000 texts, perfectly understand all these laws. But if tomorrow you continue doing the same things, sending desperate good mornings, chasing attention, accepting disrespect, abandoning your goals for crumbs of female affection, nothing will change. Transformation begins with a decision. The decision to no longer be that guy. The decision to build something bigger. The decision to respect yourself enough to demand respect from others. And this decision needs to be made now. If this video impacted you, if you finally understood why you've been failing without knowing the reason, I need you to do 3 things now. First, drop your like. This helps this content reach more men who urgently need to hear these truths. Second, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell because I post content about male development, attraction, and winning mindset constantly. And third, share this video with that friend who's suffering over a woman who's humiliating himself, who's lost. He needs to see this. It could be the push that changes his life. And leave in the comments which of these 5 laws made the most sense to you, which mistake you were making without realizing. Let's create a community of men who are truly committed to real evolution. See you in the next video.